Welcome to SATV News. This is Nouri Alamin with the headlines. Government committed to ensure women's empowerment and equal opportunities, said Tariq Rahman, reiterates pledge to raise education spending to 5% of GDP. Awami League activities to remain banned as Parliament passed the anti-terrorism bill issued by interim government. US has suffered historic defeat, said Iranian state TV following ceasefire. Israel backed US ceasefire, said Lebanon excluded. Now in details. Prime Minister Tariq Rahman today announced a series of measures aimed at strengthening Bangladesh education sector, reiterating the government pledge to gradually raise education spending to 5% of GDP as outlined in the election manifesto. Responding to a question from BNP lawmaker Salim Reza during the question and answer script session at the Parliament, the Premier said 43 priority areas in education sector have been identified with short-term, medium and long-term plans underway. The highlighted plans to establish technical schools and colleges in every Upazila and polytechnic institutes as well in every district. To enhance primary education, 2 lakh government school students will receive free uniform this fiscal year, with plans to expand the initiative nationwide. School feeding program and midday meals will also be gradually introduced across all Upazila to support the students' nutritional needs, he also said. The Premier further outlined that technical education will be made compulsory at the secondary level alongside general education. Responding to a question from BNP MP Ikramul Bari Tipu, the Prime Minister confirmed that government is committed to expanding women's education and empowering women. The Anti-Terrorism Bill 2026, issued by the interim government to ban the activities of the Awami League, has been passed the National Parliament. The bill was approved with a voice vote during the afternoon's sitting. Home Minister Salahuddin Ahmed tabled the bill in the House, where it is subsequently passed with majority support. As a result, the ban of all activity of the Awami League will remain in force. While speaking in Parliament, the Home Minister said, although anti-terrorism law already exists in the country, the interim government has promulgated a special ordinance in line for the recent situation and public opinion. He also noted that ordinance included provision to prohibit the activities of organization lying the act mass killing, under which activity of Awami League had been banned. The World Bank has urged urgent reform to bring Bangladesh economy back to microeconomic stability. If the current trend continues, the pressure on the economy may increase further. The information was provided by World Bank Country Director Nazim Bisson today during a press conference titled "Urgent Reform Are Needed to Restore the Microeconomic Stability, Sustainable Growth and Job Creation in Bangladesh" in Agargaon, the capital. Bangladesh economy is under pressure from 3 consecutive years of slow growth, high inflation and a weak banking sector. The World Bank latest Bangladesh Development Update said a growth could drop to 3.9% in the fiscal year 2026.
Which means there's reduced space for private sector credit growth, which is falling to 20 in this region. See what can be done.
The Election Commission has announced the election schedule for reserved women's seat in the 13th Jatiya Sangsad. The Election Commission has announced this election schedule for reserved women's seats for the 13th Jatiya Sangsad, with voting set to take place May 12. According to schedule, nomination paper must be submitted to return officer at the Election Commission Secretariat by April 21st. Scrutiny of nomination will take place on April 22nd and 23rd, while the deadline for withdrawal of candidature has been set to April 29. Election Commission Senior Secretary Akhtar Ahmed on Wednesday announced the schedule at the Nirbachan Bhavan at Agargaon in Dhaka for this election. Moinuddin Khan has been appointed as returning officer, while Muhammad Monir Hussain will serve as assistant returning officer. Voting in the Bogura 6 by-election and by general election in the Sherpur 3 will be held tomorrow. A total number of 6 candidates, 3 on each constituency, are contesting the election for the Sherpur 3 and Bogura 6 parliamentary seat. The EC had postponed the election in the constituency, originally scheduled for 12 February following the death of Jamaat Islami candidate. A fresh schedule was later announced. The Bogura 6 seat fell vacant after Prime Minister Tariq Rahman relinquished in prior to taking oath in accordance with the law following his win in the parliamentary seats in the 12 February national election. Viewers, we're taking a short break. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome to International Affairs, and my name is Shamsul Alam Panto.
I don't see an easy resolution to this because every slight deviation from the plan,
opening an open war conflict with them.
Testing nuclear missiles.
Russia's announcement of these supposedly successful testing.
Special and exclusive footage that is being played on SATV's screen.
Really coming to terms with Hamas.
Damage estimated between this entire issue.
President Trump is expected to hold bilateral talks.
Preserving biodiversity and tackling climate change.
We cannot protect the planet before we negotiate peace.
Where is it going? Is it understanding the needs of its people before the needs of this global world?
For China to come to agreement,
they will face better projects.
With President Xi of China and President Lee of South Korea.
Trump's White House that is in favor of these things.
simply not enough action being taken to address the problem of fossil fuels.
What their plan initially is towards the Caribbean, a place that has been met with 2 types of disasters.
Bangladeshi students at the same level of opportunity internationally and domestically.
International Affairs. Watch every Sunday to Thursday at 2 p.m. only on SATV and SATV Digital. Hello and welcome.
Welcome back, and you are watching SATV News. Now, news from abroad. Iranian state TV announced on Wednesday that United States has suffered an undeniable, historic and crushing defeat after US President Donald Trump said he had agreed 2-week ceasefire with Iran. Trump's announcement came less than 2 hours before the deadline on Wednesday, but Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face devastating attack on the civilian infrastructure. Based on the conversation with Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif and Field Marshal Asim Munir of Pakistan, and wherein they requested that I hold off the destructive force being sent tonight, Iran, subject to Islamic Republic of Iran, agreeing to the complete, immediate and safe opening of the Strait of Hormuz. I agreed to suspend the bombing and attack of Iran of this period of 2 weeks. Trump wrote on social media, this will be a double-sided ceasefire. Trump said, the US has received a 10-point proposal from Iran and believe it is a workable basis on which to negotiate. Meanwhile, Iran's Supreme National Security Council portrayed as deal as a victory over the US, claiming Trump had accepted Iran's condition for ending hostilities. Israel supports US President Donald Trump's decision to suspend the strike against Iran for 2 weeks, but ceasefire doesn't include Lebanon Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, office said on Wednesday. Office had backed the US move provided Tehran immediately opens the strait and stop attack against the United States. Israeli country in the region. The remark came after Washington announced a 2-week suspension of a strike against Iran as part of effort to de-escalate the conflict and open a window for negotiation. Israel had also its support US effort to ensure Iran no longer poses a nuclear, missile or terror threat to US. Israel and Iran Arab neighbor aiding the Washington had told Israel it was just committed to achieving their shared goal with upcoming negotiation. Iran also said on Wednesday negotiations with the US would begin on Friday in Islamabad. Israel opposition leader Yair Lapid took to social media to voice his reaction to ceasefire announcement on Wednesday. At least 8 people were killed and 22 others injured after Israel attacked the Lebanese port city of Sidon, targeting a cave, said the health ministry on Wednesday. Dozens of people gathered on a street strewn with rubble as firefighter, an emergency responder, were the scene. The latest strike came as US President Donald Trump on Wednesday. It also 2 weeks ceasefire with Iran, less than 2 hours before the deadline for Tehran to reopen the Strait of Hormuz or face the devastating attack on its civilian infrastructure. Spain's Defense Minister Margarita Robles said on Wednesday a ceasefire in the Middle East must include Lebanon and go beyond a temporary halt in fighting. Speaking after a meeting in Madrid with Lebanon ambassador to Spain, Hani Kaminatli, Robles welcomed the ceasefire agreement between the United States, Iran, and warned it was insufficient if it excluded Lebanon. There cannot be a ceasefire that it doesn't include Lebanon, Robles said. Aiding the peace of the international legal order must be restored. She also said Spain opposed any attempt by continue the country's imposed rule through the force, alluring the recent threat from US President Donald Trump without explicitly naming him or his administration. France Macron welcomes US-Iran ceasefire deal called for the Lebanon's and the inclusion. French President Emmanuel Macron on Wednesday welcomed a ceasefire between Iran and United States, saying it appeared to the holding, but warned the situation in Lebanon remained critical and should be included in the deal. Speaking at the start for the Defense Council meeting, Macron said France expected the ceasefire to fully respected across the region in coming days and weeks, adding the negotiation were only way to ensure lasting stability. Macron also welcomed Iran's announcement it was ready to reopen the Strait of Hormuz, saying France was working with around 15 partner countries on plans for the defensive maritime mission to help resume shipping. He also welcomed the release of French national Cécile Cohort and reckons Paris after more than 3-year detention, thanking Oman on his mediation.
Pour apporter les garanties de sécurité nécessaires à la stabilité dans toute la région. Et donc l'annonce
The Kremlin on Wednesday welcomed a 2-week ceasefire agreed between the United States, Iran, and Russia, hopes that US now have the time to scope the resume 3-way peace talks with Iran. In Ukraine, in a call with reporter, Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said, "We received the news of truce with satisfaction. We welcome the decision not to proceed further down the path of armed escalation." Asked about whether the Iran ceasefire may facilitate fresh talk in Ukraine, Peskov said, "We hope that the foreseeable future we have more time and greater opportunity to meet the trilateral format," referring to talk held between Russia, Ukraine, and United States. Russia had previously said the Ukraine peace talk had been paused after the outbreak of hostilities in Iran.
В этой связи, конечно, на фоне вчерашних достаточно жестких заявлений,
Italy will not send any ship to help the police of Hormuz Strait area following a ceasefire between the United States and Iran, unless it is the part of a UN-led initiative. Italy Deputy Prime Minister Matteo Salvini made this remark on Wednesday, adding that it was not on agenda. Salvini, who is also infrastructure minister in Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni government, Italy has already said that it will not send ship unless there is a United Nations initiative.
Quindi la risposta è, se all'ordine del giorno, è no. Non cambia qualcosa, non mi permetto di essere né ottimista né pessimista, devo essere realista.
U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said on Wednesday that comments made by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky about Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban after the blocked European Union loan for Kiev was scandalous. Zelensky had implied that they could give Orban address to Ukrainian military. Speaking to the Budapest, Vance said he was shocked to learn of the remark and called it unacceptable for foreign leader to threaten the head of government, an all-allied nation. Such this behavior, he said, crossed a line between allies and could not justify it under any circumstances. Vance added, US believed it was the stopped marking sense and said both Russia and Ukraine would ultimately have to decide whether to pursue a negotiated peace.
Threatening the head of government of an allied nation. It's preposterous. It's unacceptable.
China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi visited North Korea over April 9 and 10, his ministry said on Wednesday, signaling effort by the East Asian neighbor to revitalize the trade after the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia invasion of Ukraine. Wang's last publicly known visit to North Korea as China Foreign Minister was late 2019, following the reciprocal visit by the two countries' top leader earlier this year. China is willing to strengthen strategic communication with North Korea, enhance the exchange and cooperation, a Chinese ministry spokesperson Mao Ning said during a regular press conference. Japan said North Korea's latest missile launch absolutely unacceptable. North Korea launched a ballistic missile on Wednesday, reaching a maximum altitude of approximately 60 kilometers, flying at more than 700 kilometers before landing outside Japan's exclusive economic zone (EEZ) in the Sea of Japan. And Japanese Chief Cabinet Secretary Muniro Kihara said during a news conference, as of 2:23 p.m. local time today, at least one ballistic missile was launched from the Vinci for the North Korea east coast toward the east. The Kihara told to reporter. Earlier on Wednesday, North Korea launched several unidentified short-range ballistic missiles also from near the same area. South Korea military said earlier, while emphasizing such action violate United Nations Security Council UNGA resolution against North missile program, Kihara noted the missile may have flown on the irregular trajectory, with authority continuing to analyze the data. Pyongyang rejected the UN ban and said it infringed its sovereign right to self-defense. Kihara condemned the repeated missile launch, stating, before ending, we go through the SATV News headlines again. Government committed to ensure women's empowerment and equal opportunities, said Tariq Rahman, reiterates pledge to raise education spending to 5% of GDP. Awami League activities to remain banned as Parliament passes the anti-terrorism bill issued by interim government. US has suffered historic defeat, said Iranian state TV following ceasefire. Israel backs US ceasefire, said Lebanon excluded. You are up to date with our top stories so far here on SATV. And to know the latest news, visit www.satv.tv. Stay with SATV.